Good morning and welcome to our coverage of the Israel-Hamas war. I'm Olumide Macaulay. Coming up today, President Joe Biden returns to the United States after a visit to the Middle East, offers Palestinians aid in Tel Aviv. Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi predicts end of Israel following the deadly Gaza hospital explosion. Plus, former U.S. President Donald Trump says he may travel to Israel. All that and more in the course of today's program. Thank you for being with us. Now, we'd like to speak to Dr. Kunle Olawunmi, who's a retired Navy Commodore and the head of Department of International Relations and Diplomatic Studies at the Chrisland University, Abeokuta. He was also a Deputy Defense Attaché to Israel between 2003 and 2007. He speaks to us virtually from Abeokuta in southwest Nigeria. Good morning and thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Olumide, and thank you for having me.
So you see these protests happening around the world, pro-Palestine protests, some factions who say they're speaking for Israel in their view, asking for peace and asking for a ceasefire, which obviously is also a pro-Palestine position. At the same time, we have the supporters of Israel around the world also lending their voice to what has become a dichotomy of voices, one for, one against. While all this is happening, President of the United States, Joe Biden, has managed to secure $100 million in humanitarian aid for the people of Gaza. What are your initial reactions?
Thank you very much for that question. I think my initial reaction is that there's a lot of noise, all over the world. A lot of misinformation, propaganda, lies, and so on. I think we should look at three things. What are the issues? Because there's need for us to quiet this noise. What are the issues? So, what are the challenges? Then we look at the prospects. Because if we keep on looking at the issue that is going on now, we cannot solve the problem. Because the essence of this kind of discourse is to look for a solution. Who are the Jews? Are you Jew by birth or Jew by religion? These are the areas we need to clarify. Who are the people in Palestine today? Were they Arabs that moved into the place? Why do we get to where we are? If you give $100 million for AIDS, how has that one helped anybody? So I think the way the international community is treating this case is very, very elementary, because I think we should be looking for a solution. Before now, what happened in Europe? The Jewish were not welcome in Europe, and that was why we have Holocaust. And the Europeans actually felt that it is safer for them, for Europeans, to get a home for the Jews. And they suggested Uganda, and the Jews said no, they want the biblical place, and they moved them there and kick out the people that were there. That was the genesis, that was the beginning. You move people into a space where already people are living, and they took over the place. Now, those people are now locked up in Gaza, which is the biggest prison in the world.
Sorry, Dr. Olawunmi. Dr. Olawunmi, sorry, let me pause you there so you can explain further. You can go back to your point. That was for the current Jewish state. What about the Israel before 1948? What about the historic Israel, which was a state, which was a nation? The impression you're given is that Israel did not exist outside 1948.
Yeah, if you want us to go to the history, Jesus Christ himself was a black man. He doesn't speak Hebrew. He speaks Aramaic. So if he was a black man, so what happened to the population that were in that region that time? Those people that are in Ethiopia today, Eritrea, some of them that ran to Nigeria and so on. What happened to those populations? Who were they? So I don't want us to go into history because how far can we go?
I'm sorry, did you just say that Jesus was a black man?
You can investigate that claim.
Okay, lest we digress. Let's focus on the Middle East crisis now, and let's focus on the matters at hand. Now that that humanitarian aid has been promised by the United States, and Israel, according to President Joe Biden, is beholden to a commitment from them that they will allow the Rafah crossing to be the outlet for this aid. Israel has expressed their reservations that that aid should not fall into the hands of Hamas. So that's an entirely fuzzy and blurry situation because it's not known exactly how Israel will respond when the aid begins to trickle through that outlet, whether it is going to get to the Gazans who are there in the southern border of Gaza. What is your view on how Israel is handling this humanitarian aid for the Palestinians in Gaza? They say they are fine with it, but they don't want that aid to get into the hands of Hamas.
Yeah, you cannot differentiate the Hamas from the population in Palestine. You know, the West Bank and the Gaza, or southern part of Palestinian actually is just like a big prison, and you now want to give food to some prisoners, and you say the food should not get to the gangster within that prison. It's not possible. So I look at some of these things differently. I mean, well, let's address the issue. These are people that are in the biggest prison in the world. We're pumping them every day. I don't support either. I mean, I study in Israel. I have a lot of friends in Israel. A lot of friends in Israel. But I'm not supporting either. The issue is that there are people that are locked up in a very big space. Gaza, West Bank. Now you want to give them food, and you are saying that the food should not get to maybe the head of the, when you have a prison, then you have some gangster that, deals with the prison. So what we should be thinking about is the solution, which is bigger than giving them aid. Giving them food in the prison will not solve the problem. Using a lot of military might will not solve the problem. I've not seen where kinetic activities or action, as we are seeing in Gaza, has solved any problem. So I think we should think and start looking at the political aspect. Giving them 100 million and giving them aid and food will not solve the problem. Saying that you shouldn't get to the Hamas. Do we have any other leadership in Palestine, in Gaza? The Hamas are the government. Just like in Nigeria, you have APC and so on. The Hamas are the government. There's no political freedom there. So I think we should start thinking about two-state solution and try to see how peace can come to Middle East. It's not about food or aid. And Nigeria has been getting food and aid forever. It has not helped us. So don't let us start looking at the issue of aid. Somebody giving 100 million. For me, it's an insult. We shouldn't be thinking about. They are not animals. So we shouldn't be looking at them like, criminals inside a prison and we just deal with them as we like. We should start thinking of how can. I studied in Israel. I was an attaché in Israel, and I know Israel is a state that is perpetually under attack by its neighbors. That's how we should look at it. Why should we allow this to be reoccurring? People are dying every day. Let's look at the big picture. How can the solution come? Not giving them food or faith.
Okay, let's look at. Well, I don't think. Obviously, the aid being asked to get to the refugees and the people in Gaza is not because Israel or any country is demeaning of them in regard of their status, but obviously it's because of the humanitarian situation that has arisen because of the Israeli airstrikes. But we're talking about solutions. You mentioned solutions. The United Nations has had a Security Council resolution that would have condemned Hamas invasion of Israel and asked for a pause in the fighting for a ceasefire for humanitarian concerns. This happened, I believe, on Wednesday, and the countries voted, 12 countries voted in favor of that UN resolution, calling for a pause in the fighting, a humanitarian abetted ceasefire, and also condemning Hamas invasion in Israel. 12 voted for, 1 voted against. That's the United Nations. The United Nations vetoed, sorry, the United States, I beg your pardon, vetoed that resolution. The UK and Russia abstained. So we have these countries. Let me just mention Ghana, Japan, Malta, Mozambique, Switzerland, the United Arab Emirates. They all voted in favor for a ceasefire. The United States vetoed it, voted against it, saying that that ceasefire did not take into consideration the right of Israel to defend itself in the face of the Hamas aggression. Will that have been a way forward?
Definitely no. You see, if you want to look at what the United States are doing, I mean, I've been following Biden's statements and I've been following his trips back and forth. You know, election is coming in the United States very soon. So we have to look at the political aspect, the issue of the Jewish lobbyist groups that are in the U.S., and Biden has to be extremely careful. But answering your question, how can that be the way forward? It's like telling the people in Gaza that they have not been punished enough. You have to be, I mean, the number of deaths is not enough. You should allow the Israelis to take their pounds of flesh before we can start talking about peace or ceasefire or anything. They've not gotten enough, so allow them to revenge as much as possible. That is not the way forward. Because for every person you kill in Gaza, there's a theory. You get 10 more enemies. You kill one person, you get additional 10 terrorists in the process. So we should not be looking at how many people have died on this side, and it's not proportionate, so we should allow them to kill more. That's not the way to go. And I think Biden must be very, very careful so that he doesn't overdo it because of the coming election. Recall also that Iranian question is there. I don't know whether we need to get to that point because I don't see why Biden should authorize 2 huge aircraft carriers to that area. Are they going to fight in Gaza? So why are those aircraft carriers there? The Ukrainian issue is there, the Iranian issue is there, and we are thinking that Israel should hammer them more. I mean, I feel very, very deeply sorry for Israel for what happened. But when people are pushed to a point where there's a siege on them, sometimes people just react. And we should think critically because history is in the making. We are making history. And names will be mentioned in the next 50 years. Who does what? Biden should not be encouraging Israel to kill more Hamas or more Palestinians so that it can suit them and make them, a little bit happy. What happened in the next 2 years? What happened in the future?
In your answer, are you taking into account the invasion of the sovereign nation of Israel by Hamas and the killing of their citizens and their soldiers and the kidnapping of, at this count, we understand 199 people are in captivity of Hamas, including little children, including elderly women and elderly men and teenagers and young people. They're all currently in the captivity of Hamas. Is that a consideration for you?
No, absolutely. It's a consideration. I don't support whatever Hamas did, and I don't support what the Israelis are doing. I just want to state the fact, put it on the table, and let us look at it. Before now, a lot of Palestinians have been captured. Go to the prisons in Israel, you see thousands and thousands of Palestinian children, women, and so on. I mean, these people have always been under siege, and they have been captured, they have been killed, or maybe almost on a daily basis before this one happened. So I don't really, I mean, as a strategic analyst, I don't want to look at what is happening now, because nobody is right, nobody is wrong. If you want to go into history, as you mentioned the last time, I will say that none of them even have the right to that space. None of them. People were there before. Just like Crimea, we were discussing Ukraine, Russia. The Russians.
Are you saying that the actions of Hamas? Sorry, are you saying that the actions of Hamas were justified?
No, none is justified.
That's what you just said, by inferring that you said that there were situations where some Palestinians have been killed and some are in Israeli prisons. In response to my question on...
I was just trying to let you know that actions and reactions often are always equal and opposite. I mean, nobody is mad to just come to your house and attack you, except, there are things, there are causatives, there are remote causes, there are immediate causes of some of these things we are discussing. And I want us to maybe elevate the discussion beyond tit and tat. I hit you, you hit me. That's a little bit something that we cannot exhaust today. If we continue, we can't exhaust that. Who is wrong? Who is right? I think we should elevate it to the...
Okay, yeah, so in elevating it, how do you appease the Israelis who are afraid that Hamas, who have been designated a terrorist organization by many nations, are living on their borders and they've kidnapped their people at the moment? How do you appease, how does the United Nations appease Israel at this time? The Palestinian position is understood, but how do you appease the Israelis who are afraid that if, for instance, let's have a hypothetical situation where Israel says, okay, we forgive you for everything that you have done in the October 7 invasion. Will they ever trust that Hamas will not do it again?
Yeah, I think to appease Israel is not by allowing them to kill more people. That's one I'm sure of that. It's not by allowing them to kill more people so that they can even out, Appeasing the Israel is a perspective. Appeasing even the people that live under siege for so many years is another perspective. Depends on where you're looking at it from. Some people will argue with you that the people that were actually wrong are the Palestinians who they claim were the original owner of that place. So I don't want us to really look at appeasement or no appeasement. Let's look at the policy, the strategy to ensure that there's peace in Israel. Two-state solution. Obama said this, nobody wants it. And there are reasons why they don't want peace in that region. That's a very powerful region with a lot of wealth. And if you don't manage them very well, they're going to expand. And they've conquered Europe several times, the Byzantine Empire, the Mongolian Empire, the Persian. They've conquered Europe several times. So there are strategic reasons why that place should remain under perpetual conflict. But don't let us go there. To answer your question, to appease Israel, there are immediate appeasements, just like they are giving them $100 million to go and feed the people that are Gaza.
No, they're not giving them $100 million. They're giving the $100 million is for aid for the Palestinians. It's not going to Israel. It's for the Palestinians in Gaza.
No, it's for the Palestinians. I said for the Palestinians. I said just as they are doing that, yeah, they can also give maybe $100 billion to Israel to rebuild and to mend whatever damages has been done, and to ensure that Hamas does not exist as a government. How do you do that? It's like Boko Haram in Nigeria. They want to have their own space in Maiduguri, in Niger, and they want to be... So what they need to do is to ensure that there is democracy. After this, there's democracy in the Palestinian land.
Thank you.
There should be credible election, and the Hamas should never be allowed to aspire for any position.
Thank you,
and
Dr.
by
Olawunmi.
so doing, Palestinian people, I think they will be better off than what they are having.
Thank you for your opinions. on the program this morning. I will leave it there. Dr. Kunle Olawunmi, retired Navy Commodore and HOD International Relations and Diplomatic Studies, Chrisland University. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.